My name is Candy Dirks, and it is my distinct honor to be your tour guide on this journey from death to life, from destruction to construction, with complete instructions to your recovery. I would like to introduce to you three senior trusted servants with a combined total of 55 years experience of the 12-step principles. We will start with Ken Pegue. Ken is a recovered alcoholic and drug abuser of 12 years. Ken now serves as senior pastor of St. Peter's AME Church. Ken also is a RASAC, that is a registered substance abuse counselor 1, in the employment of the Benilde Hall for Men as a med tech. And if that's not enough, Ken is also a professional firefighter and currently serves as a fire inspector / investigator. Welcome, Pastor Ken.
Hi, Candy.
Next, we would like to introduce to you Reverend Michael Liimatta. Reverend Michael Liimatta is currently Director of City Vision College based in Kansas City, Missouri. Established in 1998, the college offers accredited online degree completion programs in addiction studies and missions in an urban ministry emphasis. Michael has worked in the field of addiction recovery for nearly 30 years. He serves as Director of Education for the Association of Gospel Missions for 17 years. Also founding director of New Creation Center, a licensed residential treatment program in Atlantic Mine, Michigan, for over 10 years. Reverend Michael Liimatta holds graduate degrees in theology and in management from Inner Lutheran Seminary and Mid-America Nazarene University. Reverend Michael has been clean and sober for 24 years as a result of practicing 12-step principles. Welcome, Reverend Michael.
Good to be with you.
Last and certainly not least, we have here also with us Wayne White, so affectionately known as Brother Wayne. Brother Wayne is a 19-year survivor of alcohol and chemical dependency. Brother Wayne has been in the field of substance abuse counseling for over 17 years and is now a certified advanced substance abuse counselor, where he serves as executive director of Footprints Life Change Station. The Footprints program serves over 500 substance abusers and their families annually. Brother Wayne has specialized in the 12-step and 12 principles for many years. Brother Wayne has been affiliated with Christian Fellowship Baptist Church for over 20 years and currently serves as Director of Outreach Ministries of Christian Fellowship Baptist Church. Welcome also, Brother Wayne.
Good to be here, King.
As we jump right into these 12 steps, you may want to have a pen and pad ready to take notes on each of the steps, or you can rewind and listen as many times as you find necessary. Step 1, we admit that we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. The principle for step 1 is honesty, the ability to admit 100% hopelessness and defeat. Pastor Ken, let's start with you. Tell us how step 1 applies to you personally.
Thank you, Candy. Step 1 says, admit that you've been defeated. You're down and out. A big step for me, Candy, because I didn't want to admit that I was in such a position, such a state. To be honest with myself, my innermost self was a tough thing for me to do. It took quite some time before I was able to look myself in the eye, the man in the mirror, and admit that I am who I was looking at. Step 1 says admit that you are. Everything that everybody had told me, I had to fess up and say that I'm that person, little old me.
Well, I'd say, if you look at the step, it says we're powerless over alcohol. And I think it's hard for us as addicts, recovering addicts, to realize that when it comes to alcohol or drugs, there's no way that we can control them once we've actually introduced them into our body. Another term I like to use for denial is the illusion of controlled use. And I think it's so easy for addicts to blame everything else on their problems except the alcohol or drugs that they're putting into their body. I had a awakening actually after being sober for many years, where I went to a dinner party where wine was served. And I thought, well, I haven't had anything for many years, so I'm sure I could handle this. So I had started off with one glass of wine, ended up finishing off the bottle and finding myself sitting on my living room floor hours later wondering how I got that way. And for me, that was the awakening to say, if I put alcohol or drugs into my body, I have absolutely no way to predict what's going to happen.
I think that that's where we have to start, first of all. When we admit, it's not just a step one. You take a giant step before you get to step one. And as we go through this process, we'll find out that we admit, we come to believe, and then we make a decision. The context of admitting that and that's another thing, I always said me. When I was able to say we, then it started to make a difference. We admitted that we were powerless. Real simple, not very complicated. Put the key in the car, turn the switch. It don't work no more. Not only will it be powerless, but believe me, if the car don't start, it's going to be unmanageable.
Who cares to admit complete defeat?
No one wants to admit they're defeated. As a child born and raised, man never admits that he's down and out. Never let him see you cry, son. All those stories that my father and my big brothers, my uncles told me, turned out to be all downright lies. Defeat, too much ego to say that I'm defeated. Oh no, I still got one last chance. Watch me do this thing and still make it. No one wants to admit complete defeat. But there's a good thing about admitting defeat. Once you do, you can start to heal.
Reverend Michael, give us some examples of powerlessness.
Well, I shared earlier about my experience of being at a kind of innocent social setting and finding that I drank way more than I meant to. I think that's the common story of every alcoholic or drug addict. It's the illusion of controlled use. I think I can handle this. And it takes a lot of, I think, repeatedly bad experiences for us to finally come to the place and realize that I can't keep doing this to myself. I like to think of powerlessness a little bit like playing Russian roulette, where you have a revolver with 6 chambers and 1 bullet. Maybe I pick up a drink this time and I can go home afterwards. But if I keep spinning the chamber long enough, that one experience of powerlessness happens, and we will be spinning out of control. We're spending all our money. We're missing work. All of these things are used by God. I think the consequences of our behavior are used by God to wake us up. And it seems like, at least for me, it's sort of like a whisper in the ear, a tap on the shoulder, and a 2x4 over the head sometimes to finally get my attention. So I'd say, powerlessness really means recognizing what is the real problem in my life. And the old saying goes, if something causes problems, it is a problem.
What is hitting bottom, and for each of you, what was hitting bottom like for you?
That's a phrase that you hear so often in this recovery process. And unfortunately, I'm not so sure I've hit my bottom, because my bottom was quicksand. And it just seems like every time I thought I had hit the bottom, that I went down deeper. And I say that to believe that if I choose to go back out there, that there's another bottom waiting for me. So it changes as we go along. The one thing that can be identified as hitting a bottom for me is what I'm doing ain't working. It's just not getting the results. I'm not the man that Willie Mae and Louis White raised to be. I had gotten to a point. It wasn't that I couldn't stop drinking and drugging candy. It was that I couldn't stop starting to drink and drug. I stopped many times, but I just couldn't stop starting. And then the other thing was, it's not that I drink or drug too much. Not for this guy right here. It was that I couldn't get enough. Okay? And that is what separated me from the guy that can have a glass of wine on New Year's Day or with his dinner. I think Mike alluded to the same thing. it was unpredictable. Once I start, and no telling where I was going to end up at. So today, when you say what's powerlessness, I think that was your question?
And hitting bottom.
Hitting bottom, for a person like me, is looking in the mirror and saying, who is that? Where did he come from? What kind of monster has been created here? But then looking at the mirror and then looking up and say, if you be God, if you be God.
Hitting bottom for me was not losing the job, which was traumatic. It was not losing my wife and custody of our daughters, which was traumatic. Hitting bottom for me was recognizing that I had went so far from where I should have been. God gave me like little snapshots of my life. Look where you were, now look where you are now. I strayed away from the beaten path. And in those quiet moments late at night, he would speak to me in unspeakable terms like it had to be him, because how in the world could I have those thoughts if he was not giving them to me?
That's good.
I had saw how far I had failed. Everything worthwhile in life, I gave up for a hit of dope. That was a bottom. That was a bottom that was so painful that I said to myself, never again. I said to myself, come hell or high water, I'm not going back. That was my bottom.
Well, I had a really unique experience of hitting bottom. I had received Christ in my early college years, and I actually, struggled to stay sober, or even start staying sober for a couple of years after that. And so I had a tremendous backsliding experience one summer, where I worked at a state park, and everybody out there was smoking dope and drinking, and I sort of fell in with them. And one weekend we went out to this tavern, and after smoking dope and drinking all day, I was sitting in this crowded place with rock music playing and people dancing, and God touched me there, and I saw that I was living the life that Christ actually had died to set me free from. And for me, that was such a stark and powerful experience that I ended up running out of the bar in tears. And that was really the last time that I had a desire to use and drink. God lifted the compulsion from me at that point. And the irony of it all is that 8 years later, when we were looking for a property to set up a treatment center for alcoholics and drug addicts, that same facility was available. And we operated our drug center out of there for several years.
Yeah, what I think of when you talk about hitting bottom, I think of the young man. You know who I'm talking about. He said, "Daddy, give me everything I got coming to me, and I need to go do what I need to do." And you know the story. It's called The Prodigal Son. Hitting the bottom is eating with pigs when you're of Jewish descent. That don't get no worse than that. That's a crack cocaine move. Yeah, that's an alcoholic move. And then to just one epiphany say, let me get back to my daddy. I'll tell daddy that I won't even want all the things that I should have coming as a son. Just let me be your slave. Now, if you don't consider that hitting bottom, I don't know what it is.
The principle for step 1 is honesty, and the ability to admit 100% hopelessness and defeat. And there's a scripture that goes along with that. It says, I know nothing good lives in me, that is, in my sinful nature. For I have the desire to do what is good, but I cannot carry it out. Romans 7:18.